Hello everyone, welcome back to Studs and Sabers. So guys, today we are going to be talking about the different types of lightsabers, how to know which one you should get as a beginner, and how to know which one you should get based on different constraints like budget and what you actually intend to do with the lightsaber. First, let's start off with where to buy. So there's a lot of different websites out there. Sabers, Imperial Workshop, Art Sabers, Pro Sabers, too many to count. But there's a few that have a pretty good reputation and a couple that I can personally attest to. And those would be Sabers and Imperial Workshop. Most of my lightsabers are from Sabers, so I will be talking about them a lot in this video. And most of my information is going to come from their website. However, Imperial Workshop also has some very high quality lightsabers. Alright, so let's talk about what different kinds of lightsabers there are. So, to start, there's Baselit, which looks like this. Pretty basic. I don't have the sound on right now. This is what it would sound like with sound. It's blaster deflection. Then there's S-RGB, which is very similar to that. It probably won't look too much different other than more color options, things like that, which I'll get into later. Next is Neopixel, which looks more like this. Those are the blaster deflections for this one. This is supposed to be a dark saber, so you're gonna hear that ting at the end. That one. And then there's Profi, which is going to be very similar to that. Something to make note of is that I'm going to be talking about, like I said, the Sabers website. So something to make note of is that not every hilt that you find is going to have every single one of these options to choose from. So when you're looking at a hilt, it will let you pick between Baselit, S-RGB, Neopixel, or Profi. But not every lightsaber is going to have all four options. Usually it will either have at a minimum of one of the first two and one of the last two. So it'll normally be Baselit and Neopixel. That's probably the most varied you'll get. Some of them will be S-RGB, Neopixel, and Profi, but no Baselit. It just depends on which one you're looking at. So pick a hilt first that you like, and then maybe base it off that. If it's too expensive, pick a different hilt, that kind of thing. So just keep that in mind that as I'm talking about this, not every single saber is going to come up with all four options. So if you're picking an option over what the saber looks like, filter by the option by just searching Baselit or S-RGB. If you're looking for a specific hilt, and then it doesn't really matter about the mode, then you just need to search by your hilt's name. If you're looking for Darth Maul, look up Darth Maul. Cal Kestis, look up Cal, that kind of thing. Okay, so the first one we're going to talk about is Baselit. That's what this one is. I'm going to turn off the sound while I have this talk. First one I'm going to talk about is Baselit. So you can kind of see on the camera, there's a light here, and it kind of diminishes towards the top. Not a whole lot, but it shows more on camera than it does in real life. In real life, it looks much better than this. And it's also light in here. So I turn the light off, you'll see it does have still a very clean, I just showed another one. Still has a very clean look to it. That diminishing look comes from the fact that there's a LED in the base of this hilt right here. And basically it emits and then it just goes up this tube. This tube has nothing in it. It's basically like PVC. It's practically empty. The Baselit comes with about 12 color options, which you can see here. So I'll just show you those real quick. You got red, yellow, teal, a different shade of blue, green, a white pinkish color, a orange, a purple, a deeper orange, a brighter pink, a white, a blue, and that's pretty much it. You're back to the standard red that I was on. So limited color option. There's definitely a lot of fonts on here, but not as many as you would get as you move up the tiers. And when I say fonts, I mean like the sound. So just a real quick example. This is Starkiller. Okay, if I change the font to, obviously, General Grievous, it sounds different. So there's a limit on the number of fonts on here, whereas this one, which is my Neopixel, is going to have a lot more fonts on it, which I will talk about later. So the next one I'm going to talk about is S-RGB. That is very similar to this one, the only difference being that instead of having this one LED that's at the bottom, it's going to have 3 LEDs, a red, green, and blue, and it's going to use different values of those to create a much wider range of colors instead of just the single LED in this one. So this is Baselit, and you have those 12 different color options that I showed you earlier. However, S-RGB has more. I don't personally have an S-RGB, but based on the research that I've gathered, you know, there's only a few color options on here, significantly more on the S-RGB. It also has a couple more fonts, and it does have Bluetooth connectivity. So this one does not. Baselits don't tend to have Bluetooth connectivity, but Bluetooth connectivity isn't dependent on the type that you get. So I would just check the specifications. If that's what you're looking for, just make sure that that's what you're getting. The next one I'm going to talk about is Neopixel. So the Neopixel is a little different in its technology in that there's some sensors down here that basically send information all the way up this tube right here. And this tube is lined with LEDs on the inside. So unlike the Baselit where it's hollow, this has LEDs that go all the way up, which is what allows the blade to climb up instead of just being from the bottom to the top instantly. So this one gives you a bit of more realistic effect. You'll also see that when this is on, when I do the blaster deflection, it happens in an individual spot. Whereas on this one, the whole blade will flash. Like I said, because it's just the one light here, this has a bunch of LEDs in it, so when it flashes, it's able to make a specific point. And if you turn flash on contact on, that will also happen at a specific point. The other one, if you turn flash on contact on, it's going to look the same as it does when you're doing blaster deflection. The only difference between this and the Profi, which there isn't much, but basically the Profi is for professional use. So if you're a beginner, don't even worry about the Profi, okay? Just don't even consider it. It's really, not only is it really expensive, but it requires a knowledge of programming and a lot of enthusiasm to get the actual full utilization out of it. So, you know, it's supremely customizable, is way more customizable than this one, and I'll talk about the customization for this one in just a second. But I just want to make note that, like, if you're looking for a Profi, I'm not the person to ask because I don't know anything about it. And it requires a lot of technological expertise in this area, so I would not get a Profi as a beginner. I would stick with either a Neopixel or one of the other two that I've spoken about. Now, if you're looking at the Neopixel, for customization, this one has far more colors and far more sound fonts. And this one in particular, the one I'm holding, has Bluetooth connectivity. All the ones I've shown you are from Sabers. This one does have Bluetooth connectivity, and it allows it to basically, you can add your own sound fonts. You can basically create your own effects on the blade, whatever you like. There's a lot of customization. You can change how quickly it comes out and comes in. There's a lot of customization, and Sabers did an excellent job with this hilt. In case you're curious, this is the Darth Revan hilt. I only have one of two, because Darth Revan had two. I love the other one. The other one looks incredible. Unfortunately, I don't have the other one, but this one is beautiful, and it works very well. Both of these are very high quality. But yeah, so this one has far more customization than the previous two that I mentioned. Way greater customization. You can do a lot more with the app on there. S-RGB, like I said, will have Bluetooth connectivity, but like I said, it's not going to be as customizable as this Neopixel. So when giving recommendations about what you want to get based on what you want to do with your lightsaber, I would say that there are two kinds of lightsabers that you need to consider. Replicas, which are based off something from the games, like this one, based on Darth Revan, or like the Jet Legends lore, or based on the shows, movies, things like that. Generic ones are ones that are basically not made based on anybody. And this one is a good example. This is the Vega V3, or V2. I can't remember when I bought it, if they had the V3 or the V2. But either way, it is the Vega. It is from Imperial Workshop. I will talk about that one later in specific detail because it's one of the ones that I recommend. But I digress. My point is, that one's not made based on any character or anything like that. It is just a generic design that Imperial Workshop made. So it's going to be less expensive. These are more expensive because they're replicas. They're based on something. They're based on the movies or based on the shows, things like that. So there's an important distinction to keep in mind. Now, if you just want a lightsaber to mess with, just to like mess around with, kind of the way I do, but I use it for a little bit more things than that. But if you just want to mess around with it, I would recommend, depending on your budget, I would recommend either the Neopixel or the Baselit. So Neopixels are obviously more expensive, and I'll get into the budget in a second. But when you're looking at Baselit versus Neopixel, even though these are both extremely durable, the ones that N-Sabers make are very durable. Their blades, very durable. Still a very clean. I just showed another one. I have dropped these. I have thrown these on accident. Of course, I didn't mean to drop them. I have smashed the blades together multiple times. These hold up very well. The only concern is, obviously, this is more expensive. So if you don't want to risk this, I probably wouldn't get this one for dueling. I would probably get a Baselit. The Neopixel, you might have trouble just swinging more aggressively because obviously this one has technology in the tube, in the actual blade itself, so it's harder to like make yourself swing it harder, I guess. I don't really know what I'm trying to, how to explain what I'm trying to say, but you would understand if you have one. It's because it's more expensive and it's more valuable, it's harder to be more aggressive with it. So if you're trying to be aggressive, you're trying to do recreations, and you're on a budget, Baselit is the way to go. If you think you're fine and you don't really care about the budget, go with the Neopixel. It is way more immersive. It really adds to the experience. If you want something like this is a double-bladed lightsaber. This is also from N-Saber. This is their Halo Saber, set of two. They connect with a little connector in the middle. If you're wanting something like this, I personally don't have a Neopixel that's double-sided, so I can't attest to its quality. I can't attest to how it looks, how it works, whether it works well or not. I just can personally attest to having a Baselit. These are two Baselits back to back. These work very well. So if you're going for a double-sided and you're on a budget, Baselit's the way to go. I would like to make a note really quickly that obviously you will notice that compared to the Baselit, the Neopixel is much brighter. So Neopixel is going to be much more brighter because of all those LEDs. The Baselit's going to be a little bit weaker. It's still immersive, so when you have this one off, it's still very immersive, okay? It does look very good, it looks real, but it's just not going to be as immersive as this one. With all that being said, I've talked about different constraints about which ones are good for which things, but really it comes down to personal preference. The Baselits are going to be a little more durable when it comes to dueling, but they are both durable. So Baselits, S-RGB, Neopixel, all the different versions are going to be really durable, especially if you make sure you're getting them from a reliable source. So if you're getting them from N-Sabers, Imperial Workshop, I can personally attest those have very high quality lightsabers. If you're getting them from somewhere like Art Sabers, I've heard they have good quality. I've never shopped there, so I can't attest to that. So I would research them more, things like that. If you just make sure that you are checking their quality, making sure they're good. I can personally say N-Sabers, excellent quality lightsabers. These hold up very well. So let's talk about budget. As a general rule, I like to say that replicas are just going to be more expensive than the generic ones. That is just how it's going to be almost all the time. So keep that in mind. Know what you're looking for. If you're looking for a replica, just be expecting to pay more than you're going to for a general looking lightsaber. In terms of Baselit, the Baselit is going to be between between $150 to $250. Okay, you're looking at a bigger range, and the 250 is going to be closer to your replicas. The generic ones are going to be between 150 to 200. That really just depends. And there are some deals where getting a set of 2 like this is better. S-RGB, as far as I can tell, is going to be between 10 and 50, maybe even more, closer to maybe even 100 more than the Baselit. So there's not really a good price range for the S-RGB. Just know that whatever the price of that saber is at Baselit, if you want it to get S-RGB, it's going to be $10 to $50 more. Now, when you're looking at Neopixels are getting a little more expensive. You're looking at between, I would say, $200 to $300. You're getting pretty expensive. The 200 to 250 is going to be your general lightsabers, like the ones I have here. And then for your replicas like this, you're looking closer to 300. This one was 300 on the dot, actually. Worth it though. But yeah, so Neopixels are going to run you pretty high. With that being said, I'm going to recommend either Baselit or Neopixel options. For S-RGB or Profi, I'm not going to get into those because not only do I not have any of them, but S-RGB is kind of like the middle ground between Baselit and Neopixel, and it's not always an option, but Baselit and Neopixel are pretty much always an option for lightsaber. So I'm just going to give you my top 2 recommendations. Top recommendation for each one of those. So in terms of Baselit, I would recommend the combat set of 2 or just the combat if you don't want 2 of them. The normal just combat, the one lightsaber is going to be close to $120 to $150 if I'm correct. And the set of 2 is going to be right at $200. So it's worth it to get the set of 2 if you have the extra money because it's not double the price. And it lets you go back to back like Darth Maul, which is, let's all agree, is awesome. As for Neopixel, and that other one that I just spoke about, the combat set of 2 is on N-Sabers. All the stuff I talked about previously is on N-Sabers. What I'm going to talk about now, for my recommendation for Neopixel, is from Imperial Workshop. Now this is if you're really on a budget here. If you're not really on a budget, I recommend spending a little extra money on N-Saber to get a nice Neopixel. Look in the Eco tab if you are on a budget still, but not like a heavy budget. And on N-Sabers, if you can find a really good budget Neopixel lightsaber. Like I said, replicas are just going to cost more, so just keep that in mind. But if you're really, really, really on a budget for Neopixels, I recommend getting the Vega V3 off Imperial Workshop. It is a $170 Neopixel, which is a really good deal. And that's the first one I got. That's the one I have right here. I can personally attest to its quality. It is very good quality. It works very well. It's got many different options. The customization is a little less user-friendly than the ones that you get at N-Sabers. N-Saber customization, very user-friendly. Imperial Workshop, a little less, but still is very doable. On Imperial Workshop's website, there is another option that I don't personally have and wasn't there when I got my lightsaber. It is the Knight V3. It is only $135 Neopixel. I'm going to get the Knight V3. Now, I cannot personally attest to the quality of that saber in particular, but it has 15 or more reviews with more than positive results. So, from what I can tell, the comments say great things about it. With all that being said, it really comes down to your personal opinion on what you want and your budget. So it really just depends on what you're looking for. Baselit or Neopixel, S-RGB, Profi, whatever. Where you look is going to be pricing and budget and all that. These are just my personal recommendations from the collection that I have, however small. But I will be continuing to grow my collection as I do with this channel, and I can give a more updated version later in the future of my channel. I will have links to N-Saber and Imperial Workshop in the description below. And I will have specific links to the things that I've recommended for Baselit and Neopixel. So make sure to check those out if you are. Make sure to check those out if you are curious. As always, thank you all so much for watching. God bless you, and I will see you in the next video.